Alright. So today I want to talk about like what I've eaten so far. I had this can of beans. It's really good to have like beans in the morning. A lot of times people are like, "Oh, if it's not a breakfast food, then I'm not gonna eat it for breakfast," and they're very like stuck in their ways of thinking of like what you can and can't eat at certain times of the day. I think it's just silly. Also had granola, which like I said is a breakfast food, but I eat this all day. And I had like 3 or 4 slices of wheat bread. Been drinking on this. I don't really recommend energy drinks and stuff, but if you are going to drink an energy drink, try to find something good for you. Like this has natural caffeine and it has 0 sugar, no artificial color or no artificial flavor. So I mean, I guess it's good for you. Better than something with artificial stuff and sugar and all that. I would like to quit sugar, but it's so hard. It's in everything. It's in the granola, it's in the bread. Heck, I bet it's in this. Let's see. Well, there's salt in this, and that's also a problem. A gram of sugar. I'm trying to see if they have it listed on. Well, it's not in the ingredients, so maybe it's just naturally occurring sugar, which is fine. I bought some bagels, so I'll be eating bagels today. I'll try to eat that whole pack today. My voice got weird. I'll try to eat that whole pack today. And then, oh yeah, vitamins. Vitamin C. And, I have a women's multivitamin. Ooh, this got all melty. A women's multivitamin I'll probably take later. I think the hardest part about going vegan is people don't replace the meat and dairy and eggs with something adequate. So, like if for breakfast, if they normally have like eggs and bacon, then they'll change it to just like toast. But what you should have is probably like toast with avocado and or like toast and peanut butter and bananas with like almond milk and a bowl of fruit and maybe like some beans or something. That would be breakfast. But they don't realize that like a little tiny sausage patty might be like 250 calories. So they think they can just replace it with like a piece of toast. And that's not gonna work. That's not gonna hold you over. Like I would suggest avocados because that's a lot of energy, a lot of fuel. Um, what else? Like oatmeal. Oatmeal will keep you full, but like don't have just oatmeal. Do like oatmeal with nuts and raisins or some sort of fruit in it. Put some maple syrup in it. Um, and have like a freshly made orange juice. Not like not the fake stuff with like high fructose corn syrup and stuff, because then your blood sugar is gonna spike and then crash. But like orange juice made from like actual oranges, or have like 4 or 5 actual oranges, or like 2 or 3 bananas. And I don't mean like breakfast is just 2 or 3 bananas. I mean like breakfast would be like 2 servings of oatmeal with a handful of nuts, some maple syrup, and 2 or 3 bananas, and some almond milk. Like that would be a good breakfast. My phone got hot, so I had to put some shade up. But also eat like multiple times a day. I'd say I normally eat like 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, 3 snacks a day. Or I just snack all day and instead of having like 3 snacks. But 2 of each meal instead of just one. And each meal needs to be a lot bigger than you would think it would need to be, because when you're eating meat, and dairy and eggs, you hit this like it's really easy to like become overweight if you eat a whole lot. And a lot of people that struggle with their weight that eat dairy and stuff, um, because they eat such a large amount, but it's easy to overeat on those things because they are high in calories, high in fat, all that stuff. But whenever you switch over to plant-based and you don't really think about it, you think a lot of people think about it as like the size of it, so they'll try to replace an egg with an apple. But you should replace an egg with like 2 servings of oatmeal with some nuts in it, or 2 pieces of bacon should be replaced with a smoothie that has like 3 bananas and some, what's it called, spirulina or whatever, um, maybe some dates and something for protein, like some nuts or something, or and then just eat multiple times a day. Don't go hungry, but also be aware of the fact that like you might not be hungry, you might not feel it in your stomach like, oh, I'm hungry, but you might feel it as you're tired, or you might be thinking, oh, I hate this diet, I absolutely hate it, I miss meat, because you're not getting that energy that the meat gave you. So you need to eat more because meat is like compacted all of this like energy and stuff. And it's the same with fast food, like french fries and oils and high fructose corn syrup and all that. Like it gives you this burst of energy. So when you're eating plant-based, you need to eat more volume. A lot of people don't do that. They just stick to their typical breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe a snack or two, and they're eating these really small meals, like a single serving of oatmeal for breakfast. And that just isn't gonna cut it. And like I said, you might not think, oh, I'm hungry. You're just gonna think, I miss what I used to do. Because what I used to do, I felt fine, and now I feel tired. Now I have a headache. Now I feel weak. I'm starting to lose weight, and I don't want to do that. Starting to lose muscle mass. But if you can eat enough, then you'll be actually way more energetic than you were. And it's going to take about 2 weeks to adjust. Like your first 2 weeks, your body is going to be like, whoa, this is different. This is not okay. This is not safe. We always did this other thing before, and now we're not. And so your body's going to have to adjust to not having those things in your diet. And also if you're introducing new foods, it's going to have to like adjust to eating new things and having different types of nutrients coming in different forms. And it's going to be also detoxing your body because there's a lot of toxins in meat and dairy and eggs. So whenever you first stop eating it, your body is going to start washing that stuff out, because it's not going to be continuously being built back up. So if you were to eat dairy every day, then you're going to have this calcium deficiency, which is kind of, the milk industry has sold us on this idea that milk has calcium and that's super good for you. You need calcium for strong bones. The thing is dairy comes from cows or goats or whatever, typically cows. So our bodies as humans, and this is like, you can find studies on this and stuff, and if you don't agree with me, like, I don't really care, because I've seen the studies, and if you are too lazy to go find them, that's on you. I'm here just to tell my opinion. So, but the studies show that the calcium in dairy and cow's milk and goat's milk or dog's milk or anything that isn't human, whenever we digest it, yes, it does have calcium in it. It has lots of calcium in it. Here's the problem. Our bodies cannot absorb that calcium. When we're babies and we're breastfeeding, we're having milk from our mother, our bodies can digest that and it can break down that calcium, and that's how our bones develop and all of that. I'm not sure how the formulas work, so I'm not going to get into that. But if it's human milk, your body can digest it and break it down. Once you get past a certain age and you stop breastfeeding, then biologically this like switch gets turned off where you can't digest it anymore. And if you were to have breast milk as an adult, your body could still break it down, but not at the same level as when you were an infant. When it comes to cow's milk, we're not cows. So it cannot break that down at all. What happens is the calcium enters our body, and actually it causes a calcium deficiency because the calcium enters the body, but the body can't absorb it and it can't use it, but it has to process it and it has to get rid of it. So what it does is it takes the human calcium and it breaks it down, and it breaks down the proteins in the milk. And where does it get that calcium from? Your bones. So it's drawing out calcium from your bones to break down the proteins and calcium that's in the cow's milk, leading to osteoporosis, things like that. The dairy industry probably has tons of scientific studies proving that the calcium in cow's milk is good for you and that it has calcium. And I'm sure the tobacco industry has done tons of studies on how tobacco is good for you. Doctors used to sell cigarettes and tell their patients to smoke cigarettes. Things change. I think that if a company is the one selling it to you and they're also the ones doing the studies, that's bias, conflict of interest. So just, look it up for yourself and think what you want to think. Um, but yeah, a lot of people, they think they miss meat because they don't eat enough, and then they get tired and their body starts to crave it because they know that if they were to eat it, then they would have the energy back. You just got to compensate and eat enough. Also, you have to want it. Like, if you're like, oh, I'm gonna go vegan, but you don't really want it, it's probably not gonna work for you. And so to find that willpower to want to do it, maybe watch some documentaries about how the animals are treated, or read some studies about how these things affect our body. Look at look at the list of things that cause cancer. The carcinogens. Dairy's on there, red meat's on there, cigarettes is on there, of course. And look up how the processed meat is done and how many chemicals are in them. You've got bleach, ammonia, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm not trying to say that one way of living is better than another. I'm just saying that if you want to go vegan, you can do it, but you have to want to do it, and you also have to do it right, because if you don't do it right, you're going to fail. And if you don't want to do it, then you're going to give up. And it takes time to adjust. So maybe you're only a few weeks in, you're like, I don't like this. Give your body some time to adjust. I mean, that's true for mostly anything, right? Like, if you start working out, you're not just going to magically lose weight or gain muscle or any of that within a few days. It'll take weeks, if not months, if not years. If you get onto a new medication, like I have a lot of experience with psych medications, it takes 2 to 4 weeks for the medication to get into your body and for everything to adjust, and then you can find out if that's something that might work for you or not. That's probably true for any medication. It takes 2 to 4 weeks. And when you change your lifestyle, you're changing a lot. And you have a lot of peer pressure, you have a lot of people telling you that what you're doing is wrong. A lot of people will question you. A lot of times people will ask me, "Why? Why are you vegan? Why do you do that?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I just am. I just am." Because I know that if I get into the details of why I personally am, they're going to start trying to tear me down. They're going to start trying to find flaws. They're going to start nitpicking me. They're going to start trying to demonize me, start saying stuff like, "Oh, well, does it bother you that I eat meat?" Or just stuff like that, and trying to make it like they get very defensive. They get very defensive because I think they feel like I'm judging them. And maybe that's because the reputation that vegans have made for themselves by going around and campaigning, saying that meat is murder and all this stuff. And it's like on one hand, like I do agree with those concepts, but being so aggressive with people isn't gonna work. And when I'm in situations in real life, like I'm not gonna sit there and be like, "Oh, you're a horrible person for doing that," because for one, I used to do it too. And for two, me telling you that what you're doing is wrong isn't gonna help you to want to change. And three, it isn't their fault. Like it's society's fault. It's this whole system has been built around this, or we've been sold all of these false ideas that you need to eat meat, you need to eat dairy and eggs, and people buy into it, and also that's all you see. That's the cheapest food that's available. Well, I say that, but I also know how to be vegan and make it much cheaper than eating meat. But the reason that meat is so cheap is because it's subsidized by the government. If it wasn't subsidized by the government, you wouldn't be able to go get stuff from a fast food restaurant for like $1 or $2. You know what I mean? It would be outrageously high. Like meat would be outrageously high if it wasn't subsidized by the government. So when people say, "Oh, it's too expensive to be vegan," I see your point, but we need to change that. We need to start subsidizing fruits and vegetables, and we need to stop subsidizing things that are causing people to be sick. And that's just my opinion, though. So, yeah, my phone's getting hot again. So. Oh, and another thing, my hat is wool. It's made out of wool. But I have my opinions about that because I don't know. I don't feel like that's that bad. Like, I think byproducts of like animals, like eggs and dairy, I think that's bad. Unless it's like sustainably done. Even then, I don't want to eat it. I don't want to put that into my body. But I think wool, I don't know. At least this hat, I feel like the industry is pretty decent. And was it sheep that produce wool? They need to be shaved anyways. That's part of taking care of them because they get overgrown and matted. And it's not like it hurts them, it doesn't kill them, and their lives are usually pretty good. They're not crammed into warehouses, millions of them on top of each other spreading disease and dying from injuries. They're usually like free reign type of thing because it's such a small industry. Now, I'm not saying go out and buy a bunch of wool because then that would create the same problem we have with like eggs and stuff where you just have them all packed in together. But I just so happened to buy this hat because it was better than leather, and all they had was polyester and leather and wool. Now, I don't like polyester because that makes you sick, and I don't like leather. Sometimes I will buy leather. This piece is leather. So how about the wool hat? I needed a hat. Is what it is. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I think that, if you're vegan and you're being really hard on yourself and you're like, "Oh, I messed up. Now I'm not vegan anymore." And that's how I was in the beginning was I was like, "I want to be vegan. I want to do the right thing." And I was very like into it. And then I would eat something and I would come to find out later, oh, it had eggs in it or dairy in it. And I would feel so bad and I would be like, "Oh no, I can't believe I put that in my body. I can't believe I paid for that. I'm contributing to something that I don't agree to." Why would I do that? I hate myself. I'm not vegan anymore, so I'm starting over. I'm going to be vegan from now on. And now I'm just kind of like, being vegan is about reducing harm. And if I make a couple of mistakes along the way, that's okay. Like, I'm human. And I can forgive myself and just keep going. And just keep doing what, in my mind, I think is right and what I'm comfortable with doing. And maybe you're not comfortable being vegan, and that's totally fine. But my content is mostly for people who would like to be and want to see how it's done. And that's kind of what I'm trying to demonstrate, is how to do it. And I mean, I've even eaten stuff on my channel before that has eggs in it. But when I bought it, I didn't know that it had eggs in it. And I could have known. I could have looked it up. I just kind of assumed. But now I know. And it's just, kind of do your own thing. I don't go around telling people I'm vegan. It's just like people find out because like they'll hear me say it, like I'll be like at a restaurant or something, and that's kind of the best way to communicate. Like if they have vegan options, or if the waiter just seems to know what vegan is, or if I'm in the hospital, sometimes that'll get brought up because it'll say like on my tray like vegan, or they'll ask me, they're like, why don't you eat meat or something? I'll be like, oh, I'm vegan. And they're like, why? And especially in the hospital, I'm not going to sit there and be like, because it's horrible and it's bad for your body, and the animals are treated poorly in the industry. And I'm not going to go into all that, especially in the hospital, because they're there to deal with their mental illness. I'm not going to sit there and like bash them. So I'm just like, I just am. And they're like, but there has to be a reason. I'm like, yeah, I just decided to go vegan one day. And they're like, so why? And if they keep pressing it, then the most I'll tell them is like, well, I'd seen a documentary about it one time and thought it was interesting, so I tried it, and then once I started, I just kept doing it. And that's the truth. But I don't go into like which documentary I'd seen and all of that. The documentary I'd seen was Earthlings, and I watched it, and like overnight, I was like, I can't keep eating meat. And like literally the next day was my first day of being vegan. And before that, I didn't even know what it was. I knew like being vegetarian, and I always thought of it as like malnourished people, and that wasn't something I was really interested in. I grew up on a farm, so I didn't realize what was happening on an industrial level. I thought it was kind of small farm type of situation, because that's what I grew up on. We had a small cattle farm where the animals were treated right, and it seemed fine. But that's all different now. They still have the land, and they rent out the land for a different cattleman to put his cows out there, but they don't have like the chickens and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think if they still had the chickens and stuff, I might have kept eating eggs. But once I'd seen the documentary and was wanting to learn more about what being vegan even is, then I started learning about like the health stuff, and I realized like, oh, like even if it's humane, it's still gonna be bad for my body. So might as well just avoid it altogether. Anyways, I keep saying I'm gonna go, so I am gonna go because my phone is gonna overheat, and I hate when it just cuts me off when I'm talking.